Okay, guys, so we're going to spend the 30 minutes on something very interesting, actually, and I'm going to pick it up. A lot of cues from Raj. So, I'm just going to do a quick test in terms of what the demographic looks like. So, how many of you here are entrepreneurs? Oh, wow, most of them. Good. How many of you actually work for a large or a small corporate? Got it. So, around 20-30%. Good to hear that. It's very interesting times when you get to see someone like Raj who opens the keynote and talks about an incident and what they're going to build. And that's just not happening in Hyderabad. That's happening all across the globe. And there are new tectonic shift happening because of that, actually. And that tectonic shift, what it is doing is, it is creating a new disruption in and around you. And that disruption has a potential to create something good, also something not so good. And that is what we are tracking. We actually came across multitudes of studies that what good it's going to create and where it's going to disrupt, actually. And I'm going to take you through the areas where it's going to disrupt big time and what is it you need to do, actually. So if you're an entrepreneur like Raj, just celebrate because your time has come. Those of you who work for large corporate or run a large company, it's very important to listen to it carefully, actually, because this is something that's going to impact you in a big time. And it's important you take very clearly what is it you're going to do after listening to it. Who we are. So we're a London-based company having presence in Bangalore, and we just started a branch office in Toronto, actually, because I know we are working with Toronto government. They invited us there to set up the office. That's also one of the reasons, actually, I was traveling from last couple of weeks, and I spent around a week or two there, actually. If you haven't been there at this point of time, please don't go there, actually. You can handle everything other than minus 35 degrees. Actually. That was really hilarious, man. Okay, so what do? We track all these digital technologies and its impact on large corporate and how it's going to disrupt them, actually. We globally work with some of the large banks, healthcare companies, that's our forte, and some of the large technology companies, you're going to see it here. Actually. And there is something interesting we are learning with them, actually, and that is what we're going to share with you. Actually. So, while you take a time to go through what is digital disruption, actually, in a nutshell, I just want you to take one thing home, is that it happens at a speed and a pace that's much faster than you have ever imagined. Actually. Much faster than you have ever imagined. Actually. If you're putting together a 5-year strategy, please wait for a while, actually. Everything is going to happen in next 2.5 years, actually. And you better be ready for that. And that is what we are talking about, digital disruption. It's not gradual. It's fast, and it happens where you'll not even realize that you've lost a market share, actually, and somebody who didn't even know or came out of somewhere, actually, and picked up your entire market share, actually. And that's important for you to understand what's happening here. The other thing you need to understand is if you don't believe it, that it's going to happen to you, wait and see this slide. It clearly outlines it can happen to anyone. So there are 3 categories that has been created here. Actually. Basically, the disruptors, and you see that all the disruptors, they are known with various names. Either you call them GAFA, FANG, basically the acronyms for Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Netflix combined together, actually. And they control sizable economy. Today, close to $4 trillion worth of economy. It's much larger than the Indian economy, actually. Okay? And then there are laggards, actually. Most of you would have heard about Polaroid story or Kodak story. I mean, these guys were pioneers, actually. In fact, if you look at Polaroid, actually, you'll be very surprised that they are known for filing patents. They filed the largest amount of patents in the world, actually. If you look at Kodak, they were the first one to build digital camera. So what happened? It's not about what you're building, whether it's going to disrupt the market, actually. It's about someone like Raj, who works at a breakneck speed and creates a gesture and gets inspired, and then they pivot, and then the shape shift, and all this happens in 6 months. By the time you're just putting together your strategy, actually. So if anyone tells you to put together a 5-year strategy, look again and say, because you may not have 5 years to put together that strategy, actually. Everything you need to plan in a block of 6 months, because in next 2.5 years, something transformational is going to happen in terms of digital, actually. What is it? Let me just take you through. So we did an interesting study. And as a part of that study, we asked everyone, what do you think? And these are the people who are running large corporate with big budgets. And he says, where do you think digital is going to impact you? First thing they said, that I believe, and these are 90% of the people are saying, that digital is here to stay. And I see my role significantly changing in next 2 years, actually. Not next 5 years, not next 3 years, not next 10 years. In next 2 years, the thing's going to change and it's going to impact them. And all of them are talking about adopting digital. Okay? Let's just go through what's happening actually and why these forces of disruptions are coming out. So Yale professor did a very interesting study, his name is Richard Foster, and said the average age of S&P 500 companies, and there was a longitudinal study done actually, is continuously declining actually. It used to be 35 years, it has come down to 27 years as of today actually. And they are saying that in next 10 years, it's going to come down to 10 to 12 years. Essentially, 50% of S&P 500 companies are going to get disrupted. It's a bit like somebody telling you that 50% of ET 100 or 50% of your BSC 500 top company is going to get disrupted. And if you feel that that's not true, I'm going to take you a little more studies. So the question arises, who's going to disrupt them? Okay? And that question gets answered on the right-hand side. The first thing which is baffling for everyone is that every year, 1.78 million tech companies are born. 1.78 million tech companies actually. Just, try to digest that figure. A lot of people say that startup fail. Even if 90% fail and 10% survive, that's good enough to disrupt a lot of companies out there. From 2014 onward, something interesting happened actually. The tectonic shift began to happen. So how many of you use LinkedIn? Yeah, very familiar name, right? It took them 11 years to become $1 billion company, actually, $1 billion valuation. Actually. In 2011, they became $1 billion valuation. From 2014 to last year, and these are the figures we collected, the onset of $1 billion valuation becomes so big that it jumped from 50 to 300. Never before in the life it has happened actually. In fact, we track all of them year by year, why it has happened and what has changed. So what is happening is that every large corporate used to have a very simple division called ventures. And their job was to, a bit like VC, they'll invest and wait for return actually. Something shifted big time in terms of the corporate mindset actually. And that was that we are not just investing in any company to return, we are doing a strategic investment actually to ensure that either we can partner with them, we can procure for them, or we can invest in these guys to create a competitive advantage or a new product that allows us to address a separate market share, typically white space analysis. And you see that in last 4 years, the jump in the entire CVC that has happened there. And there is a reason actually. People have just get up and started realizing actually this is going to happen. All the banks globally we are talking to, or the financial institution we are talking to, or the healthcare institution we are talking actually, everyone is asking one question. It's a boardroom discussion that how do I handle this digital disruption actually? How do I get ready for digital? Correct? And essentially, there is a big realization in the boardroom is that the speed we move in and what we are trying to do and the culture we have built, we are responsible for basically defending our 99% of the revenue actually. These 5 to 10% of the revenue today, which is digital, which is eventually becomes 70% actually. We need someone else to guide us how it needs to be done. So essentially, all of them are looking outside to source these innovations. So speed, it's very, very important actually. So we actually spoke to 150 large executives, both in UK and US. 90% of them clearly told us that, look guys, I realize the revenue stream of my company is going to change. The biggest thing I'm realizing is that my job and my role is going to substantially change in the next 12 to 24 months. And I think ideally you should look at the same thing. If you are working somewhere, if you're running a large corporate, something fundamentally changing actually. People's buying behavior is changing actually. People don't go to a grocery shop. People don't go to a mall to buy things actually. People actually do not okay, read newspaper anymore, actually. They just want just-in-time news to satisfy what happened, actually. In fact, most of the people get their news in India from WhatsApp, actually. Not even any kind of a large newspaper, actually. And that's just the disruption coming your way. So, interestingly, you know, remember around 5-6 years back, people used to say data is the new oil, new economy. Today, speed is the new oil and new economy. At what speed you move and change things is going to decide, actually. First example for you to believe what I'm saying is that this is directly from the Bloomberg. What was the top 20 companies or top 10 companies in 2000, and what is the top 10 companies in 2018? Actually. Top 5 companies are platform companies. They are digital companies. Some of them didn't even exist, actually. And it never happened. Some of these companies came from outside of US, actually. So if you look at likes of Tencent, Alibaba, correct? All these companies are outside of US, actually. Something never happened before, right? So if you want to know, and if you want to believe that the speed is for real, we actually picked up 20 companies and we evaluated them. I put together around 10, 12 companies, actually. Interestingly, if you go to the third one, there is a company called Udaan. It's an Indian company. Today, it takes less than 3 years for some of the companies to become a unicorn, actually. If you don't know what unicorn means, essentially a company with $1 billion valuation. It has taken then some companies less than 2 years to become unicorn. That's the speed they are coming at you. And when they become unicorn, they have a large amount of funding. They can take you head on. They can actually disrupt, destroy whatever they want to do. Okay? There's another word which comes out, actually, in which I'll talk about later, actually. Something called decacorn. Just keep it in mind, actually. This is basically a company with a valuation of $10 billion, actually. Is there a company in India with a decacorn valuation? Yeah, there are a couple of them. One of them, I think you guys must be using, called Paytm, actually. The last round of funding which happened through Berkshire Hathaway happened at a $10 billion valuation. These are the same set of company which probably didn't even hear 5 years back, 6 years back. How many of you were using 6 years back Paytm wallet? None, right? In fact, one of the large, bank CEO went on record and says that 4 years back or 3 years back, saying that there is no future for wallet, actually. Today, more than 70% of wallet transaction happens through these wallets like Paytm. And then they're going to become bank. Then obviously they're going to fulfill your requirements, and they're going to be online bank. So they're not going to carry any of these legacy with them. I was having, one of the large bank in Toronto, I was having a conversation with the board member and chief financial officer. We sat for around 2 hours. If you think Amazon is just going to remain Amazon, it's very surprising. In a year's time, you will see Amazon will become a bank, also become an insurer. Because of compliance, most of the banks are beginning to realize is that these large banks do not carry any the digital bank do not carry any legacy. They're going to do most of the front end because the customer experience and behavior is changing. We will be doing all the compliance requirements with them and back-end job for them. And these are some of the large banks who are reconciling to the fact that this can be their future.